And good morning. Welcome in to another installment of Trust Matters, Real Estate and Estate Planning Solutions with Gateville Law Firm and Sean Robertson. They're in Yorkville and they're online at gatevilelawfirm.com. Sean in studio with us again this morning. How are we today?
I'm doing fabulous.
Excellent. So today we want to talk a little bit about a living trust and some of the important provisions that go along with this. I know we've talked living trust several times in the past, but always good to kind of go over some of these things because you never know how it'll affect you and your situation, listeners. So pay attention here, and then we'll give you some key info at the end to find out more if you have questions. So key provisions in a living trust. Where do we want to start here, Sean?
So the first key provision is normally a trust details who the beneficiaries are. It will also say who a settlor is. A settlor is the person or persons that creates the trust, and then it also will have it will explain who the trustee is. So the trustee is basically like an executor. It's a person or entity that manages the trust. So the reason these terms are important is beneficiaries are important because people want to pass their wealth on from one generation to the next. And one of the biggest challenges people have is what goes wrong. A lot of times they don't anticipate what's going to go wrong, and that can be a big problem.
And naming the trustee, that's an important thing. There's something called a successor trustee, too?
Yeah, typically with the trustee is the person that created the trust and maybe their spouse. The successor trustee is like who's the backup person. So something goes wrong, you have a stroke, you pass away, or somebody does. Who's the person that's going to administer your goals, your wishes? That's what they call a successor trustee.
One thing we've talked about, too, is cases like this where there's an incapacity, not always just related to a death, but someone's living, but they're unable to take care of matters. So how does that come into play?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just came from a meeting with a current client that had a stroke a little over a year ago. And now she has capacity. So the way a trust works is, let's say you have a stroke, and this person was in their 40s or 50s. You have a stroke. So the way the trust works, the successor trustee, that person steps up and can manage your bills, can pay your bills, can make decisions for you. So that's why having a backup is important. And sometimes it's a temporary disability.
Yeah, so does it automatically just revert back to the original person when they're healthier, or do you have to stipulate that in the...
Yeah, normally you may need a doctor's note or something, but yeah, it would go back to the person as soon as they have capacity.
And what are some of the other parts of that with different clauses and things that I know you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, so one of the key things that I talked about with the trust is disability. So if somebody has a disability, meaning they can't make decisions, they have a stroke, the living trust deals with this situation. Plus, this is important too. When you're dealing with kids, let's say your beneficiaries have a creditor problem or their special needs, the trust has provisions that address that issue to protect the beneficiary's money from creditors. So let's say, for example, a beneficiary is facing a foreclosure or a business lawsuit. The money that they receive from the living trust is protected by a spendthrift provision.
All right. And then in our last minute or so, what's one of the other big benefits of the living trust?
The other big benefit of the living trust is you have the ability to revoke it or amend it because life changes. So sometimes you want to make it change with you. So the living trust is a livable, flexible, breathing document that you can constantly change.
And that's critical for peace of mind because you never know what's going to happen around the corner, and you want to be able to have the flexibility, as you mentioned, to do what you need to do to change things and make them as perfect as possible.
Right. And one example is a lot of times people have teenagers and then they grow to become young adults. That's a prime example of why somebody may want to change a trust.
All right. Or someone's interests may change. They might they want a certain piece of the pie, so to speak, but then they get older and their needs change or their wants change, and they don't want to be involved as much anymore. There's a lot to talk about with this topic and all of the topics we discuss on Trust Matters, Real Estate and Estate Planning Solutions. That's where the folks at Gateville Law Firm come in. They are ready to answer all of your questions, and if you want to tackle one of these topics, they'll be there to help you. Check them out. Sean Robertson and the folks at Gateville Law Firm, online at Gateville Law Firm.